short break. Let's now listen to our speakers as they take us through their journey on SDG 12. Let us begin with the session, How does waste management contribute to achieving the SDG 12 by Ms. Nancy Nouaimeh. Ms. Nancy is the founder and managing director of Exilium Management Consultancy. Nancy believes that individuals and organizations can attain an ideal behavior by transforming their culture and aligning everyone in the organization towards the true north. She is a chartered business excellence professional based in the UAE with over 20 years of experience. Her technical expertise is in culture transformation, change management, continuous improvement methodologies, CSR, BCM, innovation management, suppliers management, and ISO standards and auditing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nancy. Over to you for your session. How does waste management contribute to achieving the SDG 12?
Thank you very much, Aparna. Good day, everyone. I'm pleased to be here with you today to share with you a little bit some of my experience in waste management and how does it contribute to SDG 12. So I think it was mentioned by Abir and Dr. Kumar before, and how much waste is really a big problem for us now. For us now, I think, as people living on Earth. And if you look at the changes, there was a lot of socioeconomic changes lately, and we saw a lot of people, I think, especially before the pandemic, the middle class has increased, and there was a lot of demographic changes, increased demand on natural resources. Our lifestyles have changed, our consumption patterns have changed, and we definitely contributed to increased waste. So in this context, and when we talk about SDG 12, we definitely need to look at sustainable consumption patterns that help us stop this waste, reduce it, and maybe go to prior situations where we were contributing positively rather than negatively to and having a negative impact on the planet. So every year we dump a massive 2.12 billion tons of waste, and the stunning amount of waste is partly because 99% of the stuff we buy is trash within 6 months. If each one of us look at how he's now consuming, how especially now with the delivery at home and with all of the things that we can easily access, we can buy from across the globe and easily get those stuff. So we feel that we are entitled to whatever we're having, and we don't really think and we don't really consider much when we buy new stuff, the life cycle of the things we're having currently. So there's a lot of waste that comes from us, from our consumption, and this is something we need to look at. Now, just wanted to share with you some of the stuff here. My background is food. I'm from the food industry. I worked a lot in food safety and excellence and all the systems around food. So I wanted to share with you some of the indicators. I think Abir mentioned that there are 13 indicators when it comes to SDG 12. And if you see here, it's very clear that the global food loss and waste by region are really high in industrial continents. When we look at Asia, we look at Europe, we look at North America and Oceania. Then they are less when we look at areas which are less industrial than others. So this is definitely a contributing factor to waste. One of the things which I wanted to share also with you, and I think it was mentioned, is just share of calories in each group. And this is for us as individuals. If you look at this graph here, you can see that there are food which are by nature have less calories lost when we really consume them or cook them or produce them. So it's very important to look at these patterns when we want to really look at our consumption. Now here I'm focusing a little bit more on food, but in my presentation I'll be talking about general consumption patterns that we all have. One of the things which also really, I think, alarming a little bit when we look at this graph from 2015, and I don't think it really improved much since. Maybe we saw some improvements in certain countries, but if we look at the indicator 12.5.1, which talks about national recycling rate, we see that the rate is very low. If you look at the Australia here, so you see that this is the highest rate of recycling. Across the entire globe, the rate of recycling is still very low, and this is something which impacts also the waste that we generate from our consumption and from the production. Now let me walk you a little bit through the SDG 12, and I think this was mentioned briefly also in the introduction to the session. The key business themes addressed by the SDG 12 are sustainable sourcing, resource efficiency of products and services, material recycling, procurement practices, and product and service information and labeling. And I will focus a little bit here on the material recycling, on the procurement practices, and product and service information and labeling. When we talk about material, I mean, we generate a lot of waste, and we all agree on that. We need to look at solutions to recycle the material. And when when we talk about consumption, we focus mostly on recycling. When we talk about production, we talk before that. We talk about how do we produce, how do we make sure that we produce with less energy, that the material, I'll be sharing some examples later on. We talk about the products that we produce that could help us a little bit have better improve the waste, reduce the waste, and maybe help that pattern of recycling based on the products we put in the material we produce, on the products we have, and then we look at designing of the product in a way that facilitate the recycling also at the end. Procurement practices. When we talk about procurement, we need to look at the raw material we're buying, where we need to look also at how we source the material. We need to look at how far are we from the source of that material. We look at the alternatives. And I don't think these companies, when we do waste management, we need to link it to procurement in a way. And I don't think we're doing a good job in that. Product and service information and labeling. We're talking about consumers here. Consumers need to be informed. Consumer needs to know what the products they are buying. They need to know, and the label is very important, especially if you look at the food, for example. We tell you on the label what are the calories there. We tell you a lot of things, but I don't think we're helping you much when we tell you just about that. So we need to tell you more about the source of product. We need to tell you about the carbon footprint that product has, because I live in UAE, and in UAE we import a lot of food items, and if you look at the carbon footprint we have here when it comes to food industry, it's very high. So all of these things are very important when we talk about SDG 12, and when we talk about the waste management when it comes to the impact on the SDG 12. Now, the key business tools that were developed as part of the SDG 12 and to support the implementation, you can browse them. They are very, very good tools, and specifically they talk about the food, the relation to the food. So we have Think, Eat, and Save. This is a guidance which was developed by UNEP and FAO. We have a global protocol on packaging sustainably, and the food loss and waste protocol. And these are all good documents. They help organizations. They help also individuals if you want to understand a little bit more about waste and food and the packaging, which not just necessarily related to food in this case. Now, I think also Mabir mentioned some of the targets initially, and I just brought these here just to share with you, which are the 12.3, the 12.4, and 12.5, and all under the indicators of the SDG 12. So the first one talks about to bring the global food waste per capita and reduce it by 15% through all the actions and through all the plans that are put in place. Now, one thing which is really striking is that the national action plans that are developed by countries to support the implementation of SDGs haven't been developed by all countries. So the percentage is still low. I think countries have tried, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. And I think a lot of my colleagues will be addressing this at a national level and a global level. And there's a lot of legislations and regulations that support these activities. If these are not put in place, I think our work as individuals and our organizations will always not be complete. So this is a whole cycle that needs to be put in place. When we talk about target 12.3 and reducing the food waste by 50%, this is at the retailer level, consumer level, production level, supply chain. I'll share with you some examples here at the retailer and consumers level, and more broadly at the production and supply chain. Target 12.4, we're not going to go deeper into that, but it talks about managing the waste. And why I'm not going deep into this, because I think in almost multinationals, and once the SDG 2030 were out there and we started talking about waste management, we saw a lot of improvement in terms of awareness. We saw a lot of improvement when it comes to recycling, when it comes to reducing, and when it comes to reusing. And the waste management focus on these elements. Now, I will be talking a little bit about something which is a bit different and how we need to really think out of the box to move to the second level when it comes to waste management. And the responsible management of chemicals and waste talks about sound, environmentally sound management of all waste, specifically chemical, and how we reduce that impact on human health and on the environment. And the target 12.5, which is substantially reducing waste generation. We're talking about prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. I think most of us are are familiar with the recycling, with reusing, and some elements of reduction of waste. But I think the most important for us is really to look at how we can prevent that waste initially. So let me move on to the core of my presentation. Aparna, please let me know if I'm not on time. I'm trying just to mind the time here. So we all know reduce. We really need to look at how we can reduce the waste which we generate from our side, whether we are individuals, whether we are organizations, we are corporates, and how do we do that? There's a lot of ways to do that. I think we're familiar with some of these common things which everybody's using. Reusing, I think this is very important when we talk about the single-use plastic, for example. It was banned lately. There's a lot of things that has been put in place to help us focus on the reuse of material rather than just dumping it. And the single-use plastic is a great example when it comes to that. So we have those plastic straws, we have the reusable water bottles. There's a lot of things that has been put in place. Now, not enough. There's a lot of things that we can still do here, but I think these are concepts which maybe we were a little bit more familiar with due to all the awareness that has been put out. And recycling, of course, we know that we need to recycle, we need to segregate, and we need to send those to specific places where they are recycled. Though this couldn't, maybe sometimes it's not the case, because we see a lot of recyclable materials which has been collected and goes back to the landfill. So the work on these is going on, but it's not enough. There's much more to do. And I was a little bit reading about waste management, and I think what really I think impacted me is the rethink word. And we really need to start rethinking about what we're doing when it comes to waste management. There are a lot of systems out there, there's a lot of standards to look at, and when you want to really put a great management system in place, there's a lot of tools to help you do that, and it focuses on reducing, reusing, and recycling. But when it comes to really the solutions that we're looking for, I think we need to really think out of the box. We really need to think differently, even when it comes to awareness. I'll share with you a few examples here about some companies which are really doing it differently. And awareness, for example, there are companies who buckle the entire loop. They're starting, for example, Degrade. It's a company that recycles, that collects plastic bottles. They recycle that, they make it into yarn, they make it into clothing, and then they sell it back to the organization which supported them or other organizations. And through that cycle, they created awareness. They created platforms to create awareness on consumption with the schools and with other platforms they put in place. So even when we talk about awareness, it has to be added to the curriculums at universities, at schools. There's a lot of things that we can do to support the awareness process, which this is a start of any improvement that we need to make on waste management. Rethink consumers' habits. There's a lot of things that us individually we need to start thinking of. Being in the food industry, for example, food safety, we use that as a tool to enhance consumers' awareness around the food and the waste. So we tell them how they need to keep their food safe, and that's how to buy and what to buy and how to arrange their fridge and how to do all of these things to make sure that they are really within having a good consumer practices, and which help them to reduce the food waste. And the food waste is one of the highest, I think, food waste from domestic households. If you look at it, it's really one of the highest because it's really a lot, and we don't really, I think we're not conscious how much we're throwing on daily basis. Rethinking packaging. We buy a lot online, but if you look back at how much waste is going through that process, it's a huge. So when we started looking at packaging at different levels, we really need to look at that, because our habits have changed. We're buying more online. We're putting so many things together. So we need to really look at what packaging needs to be done there. And I think there are guidelines to support with that. Apply modular designs is very important. Like, I was surprised when I visited Degrade that the bottle on the top cannot be recycled with the bottle itself. So the lid of the bottle. So when we look at all our products and the design of the production and how we're going to consume it, how we're going to recycle it, that should be a chain which we really look at it from beginning till the end. Innovation solutions for unavoidable waste. I think there's a lot of avoidable waste we can look at when we talk about awareness and reducing consumption and all of these things, but certain waste cannot be avoided. And for example, I will share with you the example of the erythritol here. This is a sugar made of the banana leaves. So the banana leaves, they go to waste. And this is unavoidable waste because initially there was nothing to be done with it. And then certain companies thought about this whole process through research and developed mechanism to really utilize that into something useful and replacing the sweeteners, for example. Reusable items, there's plenty of examples out there, and there's still, we can think about what we use on daily basis. What are the things we can really transform into something which is a little bit different and not, we don't send it to waste anymore. Technology, I'll share with you the lean path here. It's a great tool. We talked, I'm not talking much about reporting today, but I think Abir mentioned also reporting, right? So when we want to reduce waste and we want to talk about waste management, we need to use technology. Lean path, they have a system, a camera, they use artificial intelligence, they look at your bin, they identify the apple from, from different things, and they provide you a report at the end. And this report, you can use it to reduce your waste. You look at why you're waste, what are you throwing and what's the value of what you're throwing, and then you can go back and correct. And from excellence point of view and quality, we talk about PDCA. So this is a whole cycle of plan, do, check, act, which you can do through technology. Use scientific thinking, experiment and learn. It's very important. We can't, we need scientists when we talk about waste management. We need scientists. Dr. Kumar was a great example of how we use research, how we use scientific thinking. We need to experiment and learn. And neutral fuels, for example, I know them personally here. They open now a factory in India. They take the used cooking oil and they transform it into biofuel. And when they started, they struggled initially, but after they made a lot of research to perfect their system, and now they are really almost global, and they are really helping organizations transform that used cooking oil into biofuel and use it in their trucks. So the whole cycle is closed. So all of these are great examples that a lot of things we can do when we talk about waste management. And my last message to you today is, sorry, I'm not yet used to this. I think we need to do something. We can just stop here. Everyone can contribute. We have a great group here, Emirates Environmental Group. If you see the ideas of students, they're amazing. Students at school through awareness, they bring great ideas. They're really making great impact. And we should not stop because we can't do big things. We should do small things. And I think there's a lot to be done when it comes to waste management and consumption patterns. So Aparna, thank you very much for this opportunity. And everyone, thank you for listening to me. And I leave the floor to other speakers.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for that very informative session. As you said, let's make reduce, reuse, and recycle our mantra, and let's all rethink and manage not just our waste better, but also our lives. Thank you once again, Nancy, for that awesome session.